In the last year, 72 AFL clubs generated nearly £1 billion worth of social value through the work that it does through its charity. That's not chocolate money, it's not made up, that's audited. I'm a huge fan of the Premier League. It's one of this country's greatest exports, but they're living in a different universe. It forces inflation through the marketplace. We just have an unsustainable football pyramid. I think last year in League One, we collectively lost £40 million. That's just trying to compete and trying to keep a product on the pitch. We have a fantastic product, but off the field we have to find a better way to construct these businesses as well.
Liam, I am so excited for this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
We had a player on the show a few weeks ago, and he described football as the most ruthless industry in the world. I wanted to know what your perspective on a comment like that is from the position of an executive.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to comment because I don't know anything else. I've spent pretty much all my working life in the industry. I do recognise sometimes if I move into other spaces, so I do a little bit of work with local government and I've done things with charities, I realise I need to dial it down sometimes on the Richter scale. But it's an industry that lives on the edge. It's about high performance. You're given an appraisal, every 5 p.m. on a Saturday by 10, 20, 30, 100,000 people. And it's all about making a team come together and to try and achieve a win. So everything is built pointing towards, these key events. So I can understand why people feel it that way. Personal view, I think it's a fantastic industry. I think there are some great human beings that work within it. I think there are some great stories that are told that come out of it. But yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting way to earn a living.
Chief executive of a League One club currently, Lincoln City. What does that job actually entail?
So in terms of specifically, without giving you a really boring corporate answer, my job's to look after the sporting and the business side on behalf of the board and the investors and the day-to-day interests, and make sure it runs, and we try and optimise things. I think the truth behind that is a lot of it's problem solving. So a lot of it starts with having a vision, understanding the identity, getting the alignment of where we're going to go, and then trying to pull all forces along with that. That's the fans, that's the city, that's the community, that's the commercial element, the businesses, and then equally, internally, there's no business that within just a small entity that would have so many different entities. You've, from the players to the academy, you've got medical, sports science, but then you've got everything within your retail side, from small conference and banqueting, retail elements, ticketing elements, sales, commercial. So within a relatively small entity, you've just got great diversity within that. So the job as chief exec, I think, is keeping everybody aligned, working together and trying to, work towards a common goal. And we call it our North Star, but aiming towards that every day.
A lot of CEOs that I interview say kind of the job of CEO is just like dealing with continuous problems. What's the most common problem that you deal with as CEO that recurs?
Ultimately, it comes down to people, because it's a talent industry. My job, I think, is around improving, everyday thinking, and pushing people and pulling people and challenging and trying to work together. So within any industry, when it is around people, you're going to have things that you get right. You hit the sweet spot. You're going to have times where you irritate the life out of people and they don't agree with you. And then you've got all this, the outside sphere of what's going on in people's lives, and trying to be an empathetic leader, trying to make sure that you understand that, for them to be happy and functioning in their role, in their world, that they've got to be happy outside. So you almost end up becoming de facto, counsellor, de facto many other things as well, in order just to keep the ship on course.
What's the split for you between the football performance side and, should we say, the external business side? It's
about 50-50, I'd say. Not necessarily in any one given week, but across a year, it's about 50-50. I just want to be really clear, though. I definitely don't specialise in many of the departments, and I think my job is to employ the specialists and then work with them. And I think the really important thing that a CEO needs to know is where their areas of specialisms are, when to dip in, when to dip out. But ultimately, if I'm the most knowledgeable person in the room on multiple subjects, then we've got our hiring wrong. And I think that's, you need the humility, and you need to understand that you've brought great people in, and then actually it's just about playing the orchestra and conducting the orchestra rather than playing an instrument, and just getting the team to work together again in search of high performance.
Have you brought in sporting technical directors to work with you on that football side to take a lot of that off your plate?
Yeah, so the way we work at in the football leadership team, as we've codified it, is myself, the director of football, and the head coach. We work as a three. We have a flexible hierarchy, depending on the topic, depending on the moments. A different person sits at the top of the triangle, and that's not trying to be corny and fluffy and all of that. This is, we make decisions at the point of most knowledge. If I'm able, and I've definitely not got the qualifications or the experiences. Michael Scabala, who is a 20-year practitioner, is a professor in his art of coaching and developing. I can't teach him anything in that regard, but what I can do is ask questions. I can challenge, I can test methodologies, and then equally when we're looking at other aspects, he does the same as well. So I think it's just being flexible and being able to pivot between what that role is at. I definitely don't enter a room and say I'm the CEO, so I'm going to make all the decisions around here.
Do those areas come into conflict for you? Do you have situations where football side and business side don't align?
Absolutely. There's the natural rub and there's a natural push and pull, and I think that's part of the fun and that's part of the challenge. And I think,
is there an example of that rub, just so I understand it?
A really poor example, but down in the weeds. The commercialization of a stadium. So an end of season, the playing surface is absolutely critical to the team and a style of play and what we do at Lincoln City. But whether we do a concert or whether you do play on the pitches, things like that might delay the start of a renovation period. And it's ultimately my job to arbitrate and come to the sensible decision. So if it was up to the business side, we'd sell a concert, we'd have play in the pitches, you'd have all kinds of activity right throughout the summer. And if it's up to the sporting side, you'd want the renovations to start pretty instantly and the pitch to be growing there and then. Again, without quoting others, we always talk about, will it make the boat go faster? What decision do we make that net makes Lincoln City move forward? So without bringing in the commercialization, then we're not going to be able to invest in talent on the field. But equally then, if we're compromising the elite performance side, then it'll be great that we're bringing the money in the cash registers ringing, but ultimately we're setting the team up for failure. So it's that arbitration that I find, and the one thing I will say is I do find it strange, and I'm happy to be educated, but when you separate the business and the sporting side in a football club and you don't have somebody that is overseeing both, I'm not quite sure how it's governed and how good decisions are made that are in the collective best interest. I can only imagine that's challenging.
Can I ask, when you have those three different kind of roles, who decides on transfers?
Fans will hate this, but it's never Liam Scully or Jed George, who's our director of football, or Michael Scabala. It's far more collegiate, and there's far more processes that sit behind it. It's not like the old days that somebody sat there going, I want him, that centre forward, and we're going. It's just not like that. We have data around our positional profiles, so what our team shape looks like, what our game model is, and then we have 16 player positions. So we recruit into 16 different types of player profiles. And it starts with a data piece. So it's understanding the underlying data behind that. And that creates us a long list. And then there's some, old-fashioned work, some scouting work, some eyeballs on that goes into that. And we write scout reports. And then we compile all that information. We're having monthly recruitment meetings. The coaching staff are constantly watching clips. The scouting team are actually out there going and doing that. And then it gets to a point where effectively we have to make decisions. And then the commercial side comes into that. The affordability comes into that. The human side comes into that. Do they want to relocate to Lincoln? Is their wife and kids to worry about? All those elements.
You have to worry about those elements?
I used to spend most of my summer finding wives and girlfriends jobs.
What?
That's League One life. Yeah, absolutely. The players aren't earning at the level that they can pick up a life in another part of the country, come to Lincoln and not have to worry about their spouse or their partner. So a lot of work has to go into the overall package, what that looks like, and the family environment. Absolutely. There was some point in my Lincoln life that I got far too au fait with the beauticians and the hairdressers and those areas. But yeah, no, at some point that was my role within the team. And in order to make a transfer happen, sometimes was the intangibles around how do we satisfy some of those things. And look, I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen at the Premier League, and I'm the top end of the pyramid. But yeah, in at our level in League One and League Two, that's a material difference.
Sorry, you mentioned there kind of they're not paid the levels. What is a League One player paid on average? I know there's gross variations, but average.
Yeah, a good player's gonna be earning six figures. Low end six figures of a salary. So it's they're not poor people. I'm not going to proclaim that, but
that's annual. Sorry.
Annual, yes. Sorry, annually. But yeah, what in particular in a short career, I'm not quite sure it's enough to just pick up your life, forget everything else that's going on, and go from there. So yeah, it's not just as simple as it looks.
Who sets the budget and when's it set?
Myself and the exec, we work together and present we look at a business plan. So we're looking at the commercial opportunities, we're looking at the player investment that it's going to take, either from just general running costs and or salaries, and then of course transfer fees. And effectively we put that to our board and our investors, and we say, look, we're all loss-making entities at the moment, so we have to deal with that. But we say to our board, in order to achieve these objectives, this is what it's going to cost you. Are you up for it? Do you think that's right? And then we have to wear it from there. If the board sign that off, it's about delivering the budget.
How much does it cost to run Lincoln?
Lincoln City at this moment in time, we recently published that this year we're forecasted to lose about £3 million. Over the course of my time, 7 years at the club, we've lost everything on year from about £1.7 million up to £3 million, depending on various results, depending on trends, the COVID time. So we are the most dysfunctional businesses going. And look, losses are only increasing across the pyramid.
And is that on the investors to provide that capital?
Well, it's on the chief exec to make them as small as possible and for the team to be as competitive as possible. But yeah, effectively, in this bonkers world, that is what they're doing right now.
So costs are how much? Because that's like the net loss. The costs are how much?
In League One, you're looking at any teams are spending anything from let's take the outliers out of the way, but roughly you're looking at average income somewhere in the region of 6 to 15 million, and then costs somewhere in the region of 6 to about 20 million. So yeah, costs outstrip, but the bit that's the challenge is if you want to break even, you will be thoroughly uncompetitive and quite quickly find yourself en route to not breaking even because the commerciality is not there on the back of it. So it's a really difficult business model to sell, and you are relying on the goodwill of investors in order to back that and support you.
What are the single biggest costs on the line items?
Players.
How much of your cost base is that? 80%?
Well, there are league rules, so we're mandated to spend no more than 60% on player salaries and all inclusive in League One. But effectively, the pound that comes in, if 60p of that is going purely on your talent, then you've got to think of the stadium operating cost, the running cost, all your other off-field talent that support that. Your coaching staff, your medical staff, sports science, data science. So there's not much left after you pay your players, that is for sure.
So when you're going to your board and you're having discussions around the liquidity that you need to be able to achieve all of that, including the player side, for you to be able to run an initiative like a bit of a development on a stadium, how do you factor that into the discussions as well when you're having those conversations? There's
clearly a difference between enterprise value and looking to grow the asset versus just the general running costs as well. And I'm not convinced yet that the business model is right. We were talking off air about Formula One teams. Just a few years ago, you could pick up a Formula One team for £1. I think now they're valued at about 1.8 billion. And I think Claire was talking that I think they picked the wrong time just to get out there. And I hope to some degree that the football industry is on the same trajectory. I'm not sure it quite is. But yeah, it's a tough reality.
So we have this kind of ongoing strain. I do not think that sports teams are good businesses. Ryan Smith, the founder of Qualtrics, the multi-billionaire who bought the Utah Jazz, disagreed with me. But do you think that's a fair suggestion, or do you think they can be good businesses?
I think those that are prepared to innovate and those at the very top end of the game that really see those niche opportunities, I think they are. But for the rest of us, and for the catalogue, 92 clubs in England, hundreds of others in the non-league pyramid, you are relying on a lot of goodwill, shall we say, rather than savvy investment moves.
Would you not think, though, that looking at a football league right now, the best investments do maybe sit a bit further down? Because the development and the structures of, should we say, a League One are now far more sophisticated than they would have been 10 to 15 years ago, and the money is starting to filter down a little bit more. You look at the opportunity to invest in a football league club now, maybe in a League 2, League One, and a couple of good things happen and you can get a real return on it, or you can get a serious value increase on your investment. Does that provide an increased opportunity for you as a League One football club to do a little bit more in the investment space?
Yeah, look, there is definitely opportunities there to take, shall we say, underperforming or opportunity assets that can be primed, supported to grow on and off the field, and then hopefully move their ways up the football pyramid. The challenge to that is the simple mathematics. I think there are 16 clubs in League One right now with ownership that are expecting or wanting as part of their roadmap promotion, as part of their aims to grow that enterprise value. And only 3 teams can go up. So yes, there is this ambition, and yes, there is the theory in the model. And let's take Ipswich, what they did, Birmingham, what they're doing. They're effectively trying to take the chance out of it by outspending and bringing in a talent pool so rich and so high above the level. They're almost trying to take the chance out of it. But football is an invasion game. It's a low-scoring sport. In basketball, for every 100 possessions, you get 114 points. Football doesn't work like that. It's not always the best team win. It's not always the best players on the pitch. Off-ball strategies are as important as on-ball strategies and in possession. The fact that just priming it and just bringing in the talent, it doesn't naturally just lead to results. The chance and probability is not as controllable. So if I was to have one fight with people, I think there are quite a few people that think that people can come into the football industry, do a bit of data stuff, bring in some talent, spend a load of money, get promoted, and we can all do an Ipswich. Trust me, it is far harder than that, and that's not me trying to be protective of the industry. And then just the simple mathematics, there isn't as many promotion opportunities as there are teams that are investing and wanting to be promoted. So 3 or 4 will get it right, but 9 or 10 aren't going to make that opportunity.
My favourite part of the Charlie Methven show was when the dollar from one that goes on the stadium that takes away the dollar that goes on the pitch. And yet, as good as that is for the broad future of the club and the commercial opportunities and the building of a sophisticated business, it detracts in some way from the results business that is football, winning matches and getting promoted. When you are Lincoln and you are fighting against these big clubs and you want to do both because you want to build a great business behind the football team, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, look, first of all, fundamental belief, in order to run any effective business, you have to have a balanced scorecard across all your portfolio and all your assets, whatever you're doing. That could be anything from sports to manufacturing, whatever. If you've got one area of your business that is just so far out ahead of the rest, it's not healthy to long-term success. When I first came to Lincoln City, we didn't have a training ground. We trained on a school field and an army barracks. And the first job was to build the training ground. And we have the Elite Performance Centre now. We went on an FA Cup run, first non-league team to reach the quarterfinals of the FA Cup post-war. Danny and Nicky Cowley in charge. We raised about 1.3 million from that cup run. And we made the decision to invest into a training ground. Now, it'd been quite easy to put an extra £1.3 million into the budget the year after. But that training ground has given us the opportunity, and it's a key part of our recruitment strategy and our performance strategy going forward. So I think decisions like that are relatively common sense. I guess the challenge, and the one that always happens in football, is suits like myself, or we've got a chief growth and innovation officer or whatever. The fans always question what do those murky characters do? Why? I'd rather have a centre forward, thank you, than X, Y, and Z. But I think our job is just constantly growing the commercial opportunities, constantly marketing the clubs, ensuring that we're just setting ourselves up for that long-term success. And I don't think it's a trade-off, short-term versus long-term. My way of describing it is just keeping a balanced scorecard.
Can I ask, what's ticket revenues from a home game?
Very little. So in League One, typically you'll get your fans that will buy a season ticket at the start of the year. Lincoln City's highest season ticket is $3.99. So you can pay that for one Premier League game nowadays. And then if we're lucky on a match day, we'll top that up by about £20,000 worth of match day ticket revenue. That depends on the home or the away team. And then on top of that, conference and banqueting in terms of pre-match day, and then in terms of bar revenues, it might be another 30k a game, if that. So
your total's like 60, 70k?
Yeah, on a good match day. Some of the bigger clubs will probably be doing, close to six figures. But yeah, it's not, you look at Tottenham Hotspur and what they do, it's fantastic. It's in a different stratosphere. League One, League Two, we're in a different stratosphere.
How much is the shirt sponsorship?
Collectively, our kit property, we'd be looking to raise £250,000 a year from that. And traditionally we're in about those space. There'll be some clubs in League One that'll be half that, and there'll be some clubs that'll probably be 1.5, 2x of that as well. But yeah, it's not huge numbers when you look at what you're trying to then spend on a talent basis.
The events side, concert on the pitch, and the events that you do, how much does that bring in? Well,
that depends whether you can convince Taylor Swift or whether I won't name them, whether it's someone that's playing in Butlins next week. That's hard. What you're always looking to do there is you have an asset that is used traditionally 46, 55 times a year, and then how else can you use it? You've got 10,000 seats, a big green rectangle. Can you stick another 5,000 seats on the pitch, and what can you do? And I know that's really, really simplistic. I think the challenge is you're going up against people that are doing this for a living, arenas and various others. But yeah, on a really good day, you could probably make £350,000, £400,000 out of something like that. But on a bad day, you could lose £500,000 as well. So yeah, it's loaded with risk, that is for sure.
What are the hidden kind of revenue drivers? Are there any things that really kind of add or are beneficial to you guys as a business that maybe aren't just recognised inside ticketing and hospitality and sponsorship?
Yeah, so I think it's my job and our job to constantly innovate. One of the things that we're doing at the moment, Lincoln City, we have a very soon to launch virtual innovation hub, and one of the things that we recognise is people say that there isn't a great deal of money in football. Well, Sky Sports would disagree. Adidas would disagree, Nike would disagree. There are many others that would disagree. And without sounding like a university lecture here, when you look at the typical cycle product market fit, I think a lot of people assume football's the product when we're really the market. And our job and what we're looking to do at Lincoln City is work with a number of startups, a number of organisations in order to take whatever their product may be part of the testing programme. So whether it's in elite athletes or it's around smart stadiums or whatever it may be, and then find a better route to market. We think by being early adopters, being part of that process, using Lincoln City Football Club, both as part of the testing regime and then part of the rollout programme, we think we can improve efficiencies in there. So with the one thing that I think we are doing, by this time next year, I think we'll own significant stocks in quite a few number of joint ventures. Let's see if one or two of them take off in the sports industry. And this isn't about mission drift. This is just about looking at those alternative ways of generating revenues that can drive Lincoln City up the football pyramid. Our industry is rich with opportunity, and we have to try and understand how we as the clubs can be part of those success stories, because everybody else is enjoying the benefits of our industry. The owners are losing money, football clubs are losing money, they're unsustainable at our level, and there are lots of beneficiaries in and around that. So look, we are trying to shift the dial, we are trying to change the game here.
Your academy,
sure.
and how that kind of fits in the whole thing, because there's been so much of that in sport recently, of where does an academy sit within a club? Is it a talent factory for revenue potential? Is it a feeder into the team to give us better assets and opportunity to succeed on the pitch? You have an amazing academy. I know that some of the players you've got coming in. How do you view the academy in the business of Lincoln?
So at the very top of our decision making and our North Star every day is, it's written everywhere around the business, but we live it, is what we call win develop. And in order for Lincoln City to compete against Birmingham or the others, what we recognise is that they might, and it's a bit crass, but they might have a nuclear submarine and we've got a canoe. So we've got to find a way to compete. And if you are so acute and at one end of the spectrum, win or develop, if everything is about winning on Saturday, you can argue, and there's plenty of entities that do this. That is, That is the sole focus, laser focus. Go out and achieve it, and that's how you drive your way up the pyramid. We don't have the wares in order to go toe-to-toe on an isolated win-only piece. To flip that, like, we're not a charity. We're not here to do some, woolly, fluffy development and, isn't it fantastic, all these academy players playing in our team, yet we're getting beat every weekend. So this isn't binary. There isn't one end of the scale or the other. We have to do both. And everybody at Lincoln City, and Michael Scabala being a key component of that in terms of our head coach, we have to be able to live, win, develop at the same time. And I think that's the skill. And I'm not saying it sets us apart, and I'm not saying we're different, but that is our modus operandi.
What happens when an offer comes in for a great player and you're like, sell, and then the manager's like, no, he's my star?
We would never be in a situation where it is just on the flip of a coin or it's like that, because you have strategic plans. So we're looking at our squad now. We're looking at the depth throughout. We're looking at exactly where the depth throughout the football club, where we need to bring players in from the domestic market, international market. I'm not going to tell you them, but we've got 4 or 5 players that are absolutely identified as key asset sales in the next 12 months. And it's the head coach's job, and all the coaching team and all the staff behind the scenes, it's their job to get the best out of the player playing now to help us win, but equally in order to trade and continuously help us move up the football pyramid.
Are League One players bought or sold? And what I mean by that is interest in buying massively inbound in your fielding, or is it like, hey, we feel like this is a prime asset, we can package it to market and take it to market efficiently and sell it?
Yeah, so we have to talk about the ecosystem. So in order for business to go on at League One level, our typical market that we are trading to is the Championship, typically. So in order for there to be a buoyant Championship market, we need international transfers to happen, Premier League transfers to happen that are buying from the Championship. The biggest threat to our industry right now is the Premier League clubs are shopping abroad. The value that the Premier League clubs are getting internationally rather than domestically is a problem for League One, League Two clubs, because they're not buying from the Championship, and then the Championship in turn then don't have the money to reinvest, and their market is League One.
And they're not buying from the Championship when they used to, because
price. Young British players are expensive. You compare what you can buy, on the continent internationally. You have the onboarding challenges, you have the climate factors, you have the integration challenges, but typically at this moment in time, it seems clubs are investing more abroad than they are domestically.
What is the first thing that gets impacted if you are losing that revenue that you normally rely on from a transfer system?
Yeah, and that's where our investors help us, because what you can't do is you can't build a business model that you say you will sell every year. Now, these are human beings. These are young men. And you have to remember that. And equally, everything goes in development cycles. The last thing equally you want to be doing is for the purpose of this conversation, we call it asset stripping, all in one go. Because then, yes, we're developing, but we're not winning. So you have to manage that. I don't know whether this will blow your mind or it'll be very obvious, but another layer to this is we have to play in a style of play that is attractive to develop players that the bigger clubs and those further up the pyramid would want to buy from. So this isn't just about Lincoln City going out and being Lincoln City. We have to develop our talent in an environment and play in a way that makes our assets attractive to those further up the pyramid. So that's why I've never had the luxury of working in the Premier League. I've never had the luxury of all you've got to do is go out and win. But there are just so many factors at play, multi-layered decisions that you have to make. That's not just about one piece that we're trying to achieve, and that's why multidisciplinary teams. That's why football leadership team that we have at Lincoln City. That's why it can't be a fight over one decision or a flip of a coin. Because if we're getting to that point, we've not articulated our vision and we've not signed up to the journey long before that.
So when you sell a player, do they come to you or do they go to someone else? How does that process actually work?
That is any recruitment and any talent. It is exactly the same. You've got to convince them. So let's be really clear. There are very few players that join Lincoln City because they think it's going to be their final destination in football. Like, our role is to present to them why we are a good opportunity to come to Lincoln City to develop. If you go faster than us, hopefully we grow together. But if you go faster than us, great. You trade. And 7 years ago, that was a glossy brochure, and we'd sit down in front of players and go, this is who Lincoln City are going to be. Like 6-7 years on, we have a track record now. We've got alumni, Brennan Johnson, not ours, but playing in the Premier League, Morgan Rogers, Harry Toffolo, many others that have gone on, and we're really proud. But they're our poster boys. They're our biggest salespeople for what we're trying to achieve at the club. But the biggest element and the thing that we lever the most is the human element. We are there to help develop the person, the player. And that's where I think we can specialise.
But do these players have agents who are shopping them and they work around you? Are people coming to you? Yeah. How does that work?
Let me dispel a myth here. The agents aren't, it's a profession that you work with, and on the whole, it's a very good industry with really good people that are working with you to help grow your business and what you're trying to achieve. Every now and then we'll have some misalignment and we'll have a fallout because what they think and what's best for their client maybe isn't best for the football club, and we've got a contract of employment and then we're holding that. But 99 times out of 100, as long as we articulate what the aims and objectives are on a player coming into the football club, we have alignment right throughout the journey to the end of it. So one of the bizarre things people think about our industry is when we sign a player, one of the first things we talk about is the exit plan. What does that look like? If A, B, C goes well, this is what we think it's going to look like. This is what it forecasts. What does it look like for you? And that's really important because then we have an understanding, we have alignment, and we have commitment to the plan. The moment that you don't have one of those three elements, understanding, alignment, commitment, that's when you end up in tension. That's when you end up in fallouts.
Would you be nervous if they said, nah, this is my last stop?
Yeah, because they're not, you want ambition, you want someone to grow. Typically the profile of Lincoln City players are younger players, significant number of first team appearances in adult football, but we believe have got significant room to grow and develop. So yeah, it would be bizarre for someone to come into Lincoln City going, no, I'm done here. I'm going to put up sticks and let's build a house on the hill.
How's your relationship with your fan base when it comes down to that? You've overperformed, as we said off camera, for a number of years. You've given them a taste of real success. When you get that taste, it's inevitable that you want more, particularly in sport. How do you bring them on that journey with you so they understand that, yes, we want to achieve, but also there's a reality to who we are as a football club?
I'm going to tell you a little story, an anecdote from our director of football and pre-season tour, but the simple answer to your question is over communication. We believe in transparency and communication, and the football fans are really important to us. They're part of our identity. Having a full and vibrant stadium is important for Lincoln City. They're part of our performance objectives. They help the team win. And equally, from a commercial point of view, we need to keep them coming through the turnstiles and happy and understanding of the process. So we do communicate, and 6-7 years ago, we went on a real journey of communicating what Lincoln City Football Club is going to be about. The anecdote I'm going to share with you is we sold our two best performing players in the summer into the championship.
For how much?
There were 7 figures net between them. That's what it'll rise to. So for Lincoln City, it's a good bit of business. Players in the last year of the contract came into the football club, very small, 5x growth, we'll sell them. So fits the model. The story I want to tell you is our director of football, we're on pre-season camp. And some fans have come into the hotel where the fans are stopping, and it's live, literally, as it's breaking local press. Is this transfer going to happen? What's going on? And that's the moment that you want to look at where your fan base are. So I'm not one for trolling over social media, but sometimes it's important to understand climate, where are they at? And the conversation to share with you is we had a couple of fans saying to our director of football, oh no, we've got to sell. It's the model. This is what Lincoln City is about. And for us, it was a bit of a eureka moment because you go, okay, like they're with us, they get it, they understand. Because the last thing a fan wants to do is lose their best 2 players. Like we know that. But the fact that they're giving us their support and validation for the fact that they understand that the journey we're on, they understand that we're Lincoln City and we've got a canoe, not a nuclear sub. Like the fact that they've bought into that was great validation for us that we're collectively and we're in this together. But I do think that's the difference between, with respect, supporting Lincoln City versus Man City or Chelsea or whoever. Like fans are really they're emotionally invested, and they want to come with you on the journey. It's not just about 3 points. So who
I think it's also about
rights.
it's understanding the business model a little bit versus just rinsing a billionaire owner. When it's like a billionaire owner, it's like, oh fuck it, he's got more money, why not?
Yeah.
Versus no, we need this.
Yeah. And I think that's where over communicating, talking to the fans. We had a fans forum recently. The head coach sits up, he shows the full game model. So he says, this is what we're going to look like this year. If we get it wrong, it's on me. So it's showing exactly what they're going to see. We talk about players, we talk about what the aims and objectives are. We don't record it, it's quite a closed setting. But educating the fans sounds such a condescending term. But what we're doing is we're informing them and sharing what our objectives are, and then saying, help us bring the 10,000 fans in the stadium with us.
Do you think owners and execs in football specifically speak enough and are transparent enough?
I believe it's a really important component. Think our industry. Let's make it abstract. I think our industry has a job to do, and we have to respect the fans, the custodians. Like no matter what people say, if I'm at Lincoln City 10, 15 years, Lincoln City is 140, 150 years old.
Wow.
Like it's a mere dot in the history. So another quick anecdote for you. I remember my first match day at the club. And I'm wandering around, and we've set up what we've called the fan village. It was a car park, but we've put a few tents up and put a few areas to pull some pints. And this guy jabs me on the chest, and he says, "Oi, Scully, we might be shit, but this is my shit, And I never forgot that, because I was like, fair play to you. And you have to remember that when you're at a football club, you are a custodian. You are temporarily in charge of the fans' assets, and you have to deal with that responsibly. So I think, don't mug them off. Don't treat them with discontent. Don't not share with them what you're trying to do. Show them respect. Now, they might not and look, the Lincoln City fans definitely don't agree with every decision I make, but I'd like to think that I always am available to share the context of which the decisions we make. So even if they disagree with them, I think at least now my reputation is that they know I've got the club at heart, the fans at heart. So if they disagree, they at least know that it's done with the very best intent.
We have to talk about your owners, and it's a perfect segue then. How did they fit into this? How have they handled this challenge since they've taken over the club? And can you just tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, so we have, broadly speaking, we have a South African contingent, and then we have North America. We have Clive Nates and his colleagues, and then we have the Jabera family as well. And Clive actually started this all going. So Clive was an Everton fan. Lincoln City had a loose allegiance with Everton. He was a hedge fund manager from Johannesburg, and just wanted to get involved in English football. But at his heart, he is a football fan. He stands on the terraces. He's rarely in the boardroom. He swears at me when I try and put him in a tie, and we ever do anything corporate. He's just a football fan. But what he's really good at is he's really good at being a football fan, putting that aside, and then operating as a sensible custodian of a football club. And he's a special man, and that's his art, and that's his gift. And he is the reason why Lincoln City transformed from being a National League club going nowhere, never finishing above 13th in the National League for 6 years, to the promotions that we've had, and fantastic times. Later on down the line, the Jabera family joined, so they've had investments in businesses like the San Diego Padres, so bring that big thinking, very different, certainly from a sports marketing background. But the best thing that they've done right from the very beginning is they've said, look, we're not experts here. We're not trying to Americanize Lincoln City Football Club. By the way, CEO, we think we've got a few ideas. We think there are some things that you can do better. So we're going to test you on them. But the last thing we're going to do is we're not going to be shooting hot dogs out of cannons, or we're not going to be walking down the aisles with candy floss, or we're not. So they sensitively came into our world and understood what that looked like. They're sports and football fans at the heart.
I've got the next one on that, though, because how much of that was content driven and how much of that was an increase in the commercial opportunities available to you from the American side that they believe they could help?
Yeah, Charlie's going to love this, and I'm going to struggle giving him credit. But listen, Sunderland Till I Die has to take a lot of credit for the industry getting interest from North America before Ryan Reynolds and the Wrexham play, but then the growth that's come from that. So, like, the fact that we'll really open a can of worms when we start talking about block towers, broadcasts, free-to-air viewing, and all of those things. But the ability to show lower league football on an international platform has been transformational for the industry. So, quite frankly, without Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix, the Jabera family, I've never asked them this, but I don't believe that they would be here sat investors, primary owners of Lincoln City Football Club, which is bonkers.
Why would that be opening a can of worms?
One of the challenges that we do have in lower league football is we have blocked hours. So Saturday 3 p.m. is you cannot show games on live TV. So from and in North America, in the sports, you can, San Diego Padres are playing and you can be sat right outside the stadium just watching it on your mobile or on any device. Yeah, it would be very controversial for us to start talking about the pros and cons of the block towers.
Do you think we should have the block towers?
I think we should have had the block towers. So right horse, right course. I think with where sports media is going, how fans are viewing football, I think it's a really important conversation to be had.
Well, the theory is that if you didn't have them, people would watch it instead on not in the stadium and not pay for tickets, correct?
Number one, once we open Pandora's box, once we take the lock off this, there is no going back. So it's irreversible. And it's game changing. And number two, we have to protect the football pyramid. So, and I don't just mean the 92 professional teams. I mean all the non-league teams that are part of our ecosystem. And I know that might sound altruistic, and I know what that might, but like football is a wonderful pyramid. Promotion, relegation. The top 5 teams in League One midweek were all in the National League 10 years ago. We had Wrexham, Lincoln, Stockport, etc. So we have to. What football decisions by the voting rules are made at that moment in time. You're in a league, you get a vote. And I just think that we have responsibilities of custodians, not just to vote for Lincoln City and act in our self-interest. We have to be respectful to the football pyramid. And I know that it might in some spaces be controversial, but I think it's really, really important that anybody in our industry respects the 150 years of history. You have to do that.
So in that, are you saying that you believe the 3 p.m. blackout protects the integrity of the pyramid?
I respect the theory of it. I'd like to see data. I'd like to model it. I'd like to test it. I'd like to consult with all the clubs outside of the professional game to understand their views. But I don't think it's a decision Lincoln City or one cohort of football should be making. Football is a shared asset. It's really important that we respect that. The competition calendar is a shared asset. So if I make a decision that's great for Lincoln City but kills Lincoln United, I'm not too sure I'm doing my job.
Okay. You're now on the board of the EFL, which is amazing. 6 representatives from the Football League. Taking that responsibility, I'd imagine, is a huge honour, but also a lot of pressure. These types of conversations must be the things where you have a real challenge finding that balance, because at the same time as you've got these 72 clubs operating, you have a Norwich operating as a California, and you've got to govern yourself also as a Barnet, as an Arkansas, under the same type of rules with different ambitions and different pressures to what success means. I was going to ask, how do you even start to go about finding a collective solution for sustainability here? That's
the beauty, I think, of it. Around the EFL board, we'll have directors who, let's be really clear, our responsibility is to the EFL, and as directors, our fiduciary responsibilities and what you sign up to is to be a director for the collective. But your natural lens or your perspective or your influence that you're looking to bring, across the EFL board, you'll have people that represent clubs that are, turning over 60, 70, 80, million plus, and then you'll have, representation of clubs that are probably turning over 4 or 5 million. But I think that is the job of the pyramid. That is the job of the EFL, and that is our responsibility to look after everything together. It's bloody difficult. That is where there is natural rub and push and challenge.
What's the biggest challenge that you, sitting on the EFL board, face today?
I think that the fact that the industry is wholly unsustainable, and the fact that rising costs of competing, the Premier League and the fantastic work that it does. I'm a huge fan of the Premier League, so just to put it out there, it's one of this country's greatest exports, but they're living in a different universe. It forces inflation through the marketplace. And And effectively, what we're doing is we just have an unsustainable football pyramid. The net losses that we have, I think, last year in League One, I might be misquoting this, but I think we collectively lost £40 million. That's not from anybody operating irresponsibly. That's just trying to compete and trying to keep a product, on the pitch. That's our main challenge. How we run one of the world's best competitions, because the Championship is one of the best leagues in world football. I think League One is the 11th most watched league in world football. We have a fantastic product, so we have to maintain competitive balance. We have to find a fantastic product on the field, but off the field we have to find a better way to construct these businesses as well.
Do we need to see more revenue coming down from that top to be able to deliver and continue to deliver competitive football and businesses and assets?
Yes, we do need to see redistribution. We also need to see reform of spending rules, because we have a history in football of when more money is received on a broadcast deal or whatever it may be, spending more money on players. 8% more on a broadcast deal, 10% more on players. That is a trend that has gone on in football since the day that football was born, and that's because everybody within the industry is fierce competitors and they want to win. The desire to win forces the marketplace. Listening to Claire Williams, it was the very, very same and very similar within Formula One, very, very recently.
Over the last few days, right, when you've had the Man City, the Premier League, we built this most incredible free market capitalist structure that encourages investment and great sponsorships and the best players and the best managers. And we've now got to the stage where we're like, oh, actually, do you know what? We're going to clip all that commercial success that we've really tried to commandeer, because actually we've just distorted it a little bit too much. And it's unsustainable. But is it unsustainable to the Premier League, or is it unsustainable to the Football League system? I always think when you have these things, you want to provide a solution rather than criticize. But I can't think of a solution financially that actually sorts this out.
No. Look. If it was easy, there are some really intelligent people with very good interest, very good intent in football that would have solved this. And this is partly, without getting into it, why we need the Football Governance Bill, why we need independent regulation just to assist us in this. Look, the comment that you made, and to some degree in isolation, I agree. If that is a corporate entity, set up, founded by someone, and they want to roll the dice, great. The problem that you have in football is that owners, investors, at some point get fed up. They don't hit their ambition. They turn the tap off. And at that point, you have 140, 150 years of history and institution that is at risk and could go pop. And that's the bit that we have to protect against. I personally agree we should not be denting entrepreneurialism. We should not dent ambition.
But have they not just gained a huge absorption of cash and actually benefited from it anyway? Say I come in and I dump 20 million in to Lincoln, just say, and it doesn't go the way that I want. And after 2 years, I go, this isn't working. Opportunity cost of cash. I want to get out. Not worth my time. Well, Lincoln's still got 20 million investment from someone who's now bored and will sell it on at a loss. Yeah, fine. They're the ones who'll get hit with the loss. Doesn't seem that bad.
That scenario maybe, but I think the realism here is let's take Derby as a recent example. When Derby very, very nearly went bust, they had a number of years trying to get into the Premier League, came very, very close. The play nearly worked like within one game of working. And then it got to a point where the owner either no longer wanted to or he couldn't afford it, whatever it may be. And then at that point, nobody's talking about the fantastic years they had knocking on the door. Everybody's looking at what this massive community asset for Derby could just be wiped out and lost. And that's the problem. This isn't business people making a bad decision, oh dear, we'll ride it off, XY entity has gone. These are institutions that are pillars of the community that have been there for decades and centuries, and that's where we have a responsibility to protect against that. That's the challenge.
So in my weird musings over the last few days trying to just figure out how all this works, I came across this piece which I actually find is a huge conflict, and you said it earlier and we hear it every single time. We have private businesses that are running in the interest of public as if they're public companies. Football, I feel, and this is kind of off the last few days, we're in this almost impossible situation where we have to protect these community assets, yet these community assets, these things that mean so much to so many people's lives, they're private businesses. They are run by investors. They're run by people looking to extract value out of them, to make money, build better environments, create more competition. Ultimately, if they succeed, it's good, hopefully, for the collective. But does this issue actually just come down to the fact that the responsibility really is to a community? Well, can you ever have that and govern it as a private business where you need to invest independent to succeed, and that may come at a risk of it not going how you want and the effects trickling down into a community rather than just the shareholder?
That's part of the challenge, because of course you look at entities that look at the investment that's come into Birmingham, what that investment's going to do for the city of Birmingham, the community around that, not just as an investment play, as a community play, is fantastic, and it looks to be pretty safe, I'm pretty sure. So the last thing you would want to do is develop any rules that stop and prevent that from happening. But equally, we look at Bury, or you look at teams like Rushden and Diamonds and Darlingtons and many others. Derby, a prime example, that we've either lost or nearly lost from the face of the earth. And I'm just not sure. The challenge is the opportunity really worth the risk as an entity and as the football pyramid and as these community assets? And that is the real challenge. So, as chief exec, one of the most difficult questions I get asked is it a business or is it a sport? And depending on the audience, you give a different answer. But it is a real challenge, because it doesn't belong to me. It really doesn't. And it doesn't belong to our owners and investors. And I know they're the shareholders, and I know the cap table says X, Y, and Z. Let me flip this a little bit, and I promise you this isn't plain dirty. So each football club has a club community organisation, a CCO, a charity attached to it. And what they ultimately do is they deliver goodwill in the community, meet some of society's real challenges through the club badge. So I'll give you, an example. Male mental health clinics, nobody will go and get involved in that. You put up a pop-up clinic on a match day, you get more people dropping in, visiting, being part of this real one of society's biggest challenge. You'll get more people engaging in that through that, and it makes real change and real difference. In the last year, EFL clubs, 72 EFL clubs, generated nearly £1 billion worth of social value through the work that it does through its charity. That's not chocolate money. It's not made up. That's audited. That's research. These entities aren't just putting on a product Saturday, 12 p.m, 3 p.m, whatever. They have a deeper connection with the community, and they can go on to deliver so much more. And I think that's the reason why we have to protect the football clubs. That's why you can't just say, it's just an investment play, because they do so much more. They're a really important part. They're a fabric of the community.
In those, now those EFL meetings, you're involved, as I said, outside of just Lincoln. Would you say, going in, it's really positive, because it is stronger than it's ever been? We have so much interest, as you've said, for the third league in this country to be the 11th biggest league in the world.
That's insane.
The media rights that come down to the championship, etc., is now eclipsing major European leagues. Is it really hard at the moment to find that balance of, my God, this is so good, but at the same time, we just got to make sure we continue to persevere with the sustainability piece that is required for the whole system? How does that work?
Yeah, and I think this is where it needs strong leadership, system leadership. I think it's where we've got to be really clear on the macros as well, because you're right, there is so much that is going really well. You just watch a championship football game. Now we're spoiled in this country by the Premier League, because the Premier League is a phenomenal product. But you go and watch many leagues across the world, and then go and watch a championship game, and you're going, wow. The talent on display, what the game looks like is pretty special. So we almost have an embarrassment of riches in this country. But that's what we're fighting to protect as well. That's what we want to enjoy, and we want to make sure that there is a legacy of this, and this goes on and on. So yeah, commercially the league is growing. It goes from strength to strength. The team do fantastic work there. Globally, the brand is growing. The new TV deal, you look at what that's doing for exposure. There are so many really positive areas of football and football business that are going well. There's just this one big red flag that kind of brings you down to earth. And actually, genuinely, sometimes you put your head on the pillow at night and you just worry that you're not going to wake up tomorrow and just hear that 4 or 5 clubs are on the verge of going out of business or what, because it is balancing on the edge of a pinhead. It is bouncing on the edge of a pinhead, and whilst the facade and the fascia is so good, it's acute, and that's all it takes is 5 or 6 wealthy individuals to go, I'm done, and we're in trouble.
So that was going to be my question, and then we'll do a quick fire. But what would cause the balance on the pinhead to tip?
People getting fed up, bored, run out of cash. At that point, we have 72 largely unsustainable businesses that could be in trouble.
Quick fire round?
Go for it.
What's been the highlight so far for you? Like one moment that you will tell grandchildren about?
Lincoln City, never been to Wembley in its history, 134 years, 27,000 Lincoln City fans at Wembley for the first time was pretty special. That was a moment that, I'll never forget.
Wrexham, good or bad for the league?
Brilliant.
Why?
Great, in terms of just taking exposure to a different level, doing it differently. They're not universally popular, like let's say that. They're not for everybody, but more eyeballs on, more interest. Yeah, like why not bring it on?
If you were not CEO at Lincoln, where would you most like to be CEO?
What a question!
Thank you.
Question that is. Look, there are some phenomenally well-run clubs. Can I change that and tell you clubs I'm a real fan of how they're run? I think you mentioned Norwich earlier. They run a very, very good football club. They play a trade in. They do things really, really well and run with the community in mind. They have fantastic community impact. They're aware of their responsibility, but they're ambitious as well. So there's many clubs like Norwich, like Middlesbrough, that operate in the Championship that I've got a lot of respect for what they do, how they go about their business. And to be honest with you, genuinely, I could name you 20 clubs there. Very happy at Lincoln, very lucky to work for some fantastic people, but there are some great clubs and great operators.
What's the one thing, if you had to pinpoint it, for the success you've had at Lincoln?
I just think taking a football club that respectfully was quite broken, and if I'm honest, when I took the job, I knew it was going to be a challenge, but day one I kind of opened the door and went, oh wow, this could be interesting. And please take this, I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but I think we're industry renowned for being exemplar in a number of areas, not just one area. I think we really operate with sound governance. We've got a real clear plan, and we might not be the richest, we might not be the sexiest, but we're overperforming in a lot of our key measures. And that's not down to me, that's down to a lot of people. And I'm just proud to have been a part of that. And bringing the glory back to Lincoln City, I think, is just a really fulfilling experience, and one I want to continue living for a lot longer.
Liam, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure, so thank you so much.
No, real pleasure,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you.